The first thing I tasted after waking was the iron tang of blood and the bitter regret of dying too soon. They told me death was final, but somehow, I opened my eyes again in America, in my own body years before everything went wrong. And with that cruel mercy, one truth seared through me like fire. I could not lose him again. He was my alpha, my love, my damnation, and my salvation. The roar of jet engines used to scare me, but after one lifetime of loving him, they became the song of destiny. Back then, I had failed him. Back then, I had watched him shatter beneath the weight of war, duty, and betrayal. And back then, I had been too weak to shield him. This time would be different. His name was Nathaniel Hasten, Alpha Pilot with a smile sharp enough to cut glass, the kind of man who carried the sky in his veins. He walked through every room as if it belonged to him, not because of arrogance, but because people could not help but surrender to his gravity. The first time I saw him again after waking, he looked just like I remembered. Uniform crisp, jaw set, a storm brewing behind his eyes. I nearly wept right there on the base. "Elliot?" he asked, his voice softer than I deserved. "You okay?" How could I tell him I'd died with his name in my mouth? How could I explain I had been dragged back through time with nothing but guilt as my compass? No, not yet. Instead, I forced a laugh, too brittle, and said, "Just jet lag." But my heart screamed, "Not this time. Not ever again." We grew up in different worlds. Nathaniel was bred for the sky, son of a decorated general, future carved in steel and expectation. I was ordinary, an Omega from a quiet family, nothing remarkable except for the stubborn way I loved him. Society painted our roles clearly. Alpha leads, Omega follows. Yet nothing about us was simple. In my past life, I let those roles chain me. I watched Nathaniel crumble under impossible weight, his hands stained with orders he never wanted to give, his spirit breaking in silence. And I, too afraid, too submissive, let him go to his death. This time, I swore I would not be passive. I would fight. The military base smelled of oil and adrenaline, a place where uniforms carried more power than words. Walking beside Nathaniel, I caught whispers and stares, the kind that always followed an Omega who strayed too close to an Alpha of his stature. It used to burn me, those judgmental glances. Now they meant nothing. I had faced death. What was gossip compared to that? "Still spacing out?" Nathaniel teased one night, his voice low as we stood near the hangar, watching the silver skeletons of aircraft glint under floodlights. I turned to him, my chest aching with the memory of a future that hadn't happened yet. "Just thinking how unfair the world is," I murmured. He tilted his head, studying me the way only he could. "Unfair? You carry everything," I said, the words slipping out before I could stop them. "And no one sees how heavy it is." His breath hitched, eyes narrowing, as if I'd peeled back armor he didn't know he still wore. For a moment, I thought he'd push me away. Instead, he laughed, a sharp exhale that carried no humor. "Elliot, you always see too much." If only he knew how much more I saw now. Days turned into weeks, and I found myself standing closer to him than before, not because I was braver, but because fear had changed flavor. Losing him once had burned me hollow. Losing him twice was unthinkable. Nathaniel's presence was magnetic. He'd lean back in his chair during mission briefings, arms crossed, confidence dripping like gasoline. But sometimes late at night, in the quiet after chaos, his mask slipped. I caught him staring at the horizon, jaw clenched, a silent war raging in his chest. I wanted to touch him then, to tell him I was here, that I wouldn't let him drown again. But every time, words tangled in my throat. Omegas weren't supposed to challenge Alphas. Society liked it neat, orderly, suffocating. But my soul screamed rebellion. The turning point came on a rainy afternoon. Nathaniel had just returned from a sortie, rain plastering his hair against his forehead, fatigue in every movement. I ran to meet him, hands trembling, the smell of smoke and jet fuel still clinging to him. "You shouldn't wait here," he said, half amused, half scolding. "I had to," I whispered. And then God help me reached for him, fingers brushing against his soaked sleeve. For a second, he froze. Then he smiled. Not the polite, practiced smile he gave the world, but the one I remembered, the one I had kissed in another life. I thought my heart might burst. But fate never plays fair. Nathaniel's father, General Hayes, despised me. To him, I was a distraction, an omega meddling in places he had no right to be. He cornered me one evening, his shadow swallowing the corridor, voice dripping with disdain. "You don't belong here, Elliot," he hissed. "Stay away from my son." In my first life, I obeyed. I stepped back, and it killed us both. This time, I lifted my chin. "With respect, sir, it's not your choice." The slap of his glare nearly knocked me flat, but I stood my ground. My legs shook, but my soul was steady. For Nathaniel, I would not bow. Later that night, Nathaniel found me sitting alone by the hangar doors, the stars peeking through breaks in the clouds. He crouched beside me, his shoulder brushing mine. "My dad giving you hell?" he asked, tone casual, though his eyes were sharp. I tried to laugh it off, but the truth slipped out. "He doesn't think I'm enough for you." Nathaniel was silent for a long moment. Then, with a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of 1,000 skies, he said, "He's wrong." My throat closed. "You've always been enough, Elliot," he whispered. And then, as if the universe itself conspired to heal my scars, he pressed his forehead to mine. This was it, my second chance. My vow solidified with every heartbeat. I would not let him fall. Not this lifetime. The storm came faster than either of us expected. Orders dropped like bullets, missions escalated, and suddenly Nathaniel was on the edge of something catastrophic. The military wanted him for a high-risk operation, one that in my first life had destroyed him. I knew this script too well. The mission would break him body and soul. And worse, he would go without hesitation because that was who he was, the alpha who carried everyone else's weight. Not this time. When the orders came through, I cornered him in his quarters. He stood rigid, uniform immaculate, hands already clenching the mission folder. He looked every inch the perfect soldier, the perfect son. But his eyes, God, his eyes betrayed the storm underneath. "I'm going," he said simply. I slammed the door shut behind me. "No, you're not." His head jerked up, shock flickering across his face. "Elliot, I know what happens," I whispered fiercely. My voice trembled, but my resolve was iron. "You don't come back from this mission. You destroy yourself trying to be the hero they want." And my voice cracked. "I lose you." Nathaniel's jaw tightened. He tried to brush past me, but I pressed my hand to his chest. "Please," I begged. "Don't do this. Don't let them use you like this. I'd rather live in a world where you're grounded than one where you're gone." He froze, torn between duty and desire, between the chains of expectation and the fragile, desperate love in my words. "Elliot," he said at last, voice raw, "if I don't go, people die." Tears stung my eyes. "And if you do, I die. Maybe not my body, but everything inside me. Nathaniel, I can't survive losing you again." The room went silent. I had said too much, revealed more than I should have. But instead of recoiling, Nathaniel's hand cupped my face, trembling slightly. His lips parted as if to ask the question burning in his mind, but he only whispered, "Again." My breath caught. The truth balanced on the tip of my tongue, dangerous and impossible. "Just trust me," I pleaded. He stared at me, long and hard, then finally pulled me into his arms. The embrace was fierce, almost desperate. "I don't know why," he murmured into my hair, "but I believe you." Convincing the military was another battle entirely. Nathaniel's refusal raised suspicion, and suddenly both of us were under scrutiny. Whispers spread like wildfire, an Omega meddling with an Alpha's duty, corrupting him, weakening him. But I didn't care. Let them whisper. Let them spit their venom. All that mattered was keeping him alive. Still, I couldn't shield him from everything. The pressure crushed him daily. I saw it in his shoulders, in the way he rubbed his temples late at night, in the hollowed look when he thought no one was watching. One night, I found him sitting alone in the hangar, staring at his fighter jet like it was both his cage and his freedom. His hands trembled against his knees. "They don't need me," he whispered. "They need the idea of me." I knelt beside him, taking his hand in mine. "I don't need the idea of you," I said softly. "I need you, just you, breathing, laughing, alive." His fingers tightened around mine until it hurt, as if anchoring himself to my presence. And in that moment, something shifted. He let the weight fall, not completely, but enough to breathe. And for the first time in 2 lifetimes, I saw him smile without armor. But fate still tested us. When the mission launched without him, things went wrong. The unit suffered heavy losses. The military brass, furious, turned their blame toward Nathaniel and toward me. They painted me as the manipulative Omega who weakened their prized Alpha. The general's fury was volcanic. "You've ruined him," General Hayes spat, cornering me again. "Do you think love will shield him from the reality of war?" I lifted my chin. My fear was gone. "No, but it will save him from being consumed by it." He sneered. "You've made him soft." "No," I said, my voice steady. "I've made him human." For a moment, his rage faltered, but then he stormed away, unwilling to see what I saw. Nathaniel, however, had heard every word. He stepped into the corridor, eyes blazing, and for the first time in his life, he defied his father openly. "If being with him makes me soft, then I'll never be hard enough for you." And then he reached for my hand, pulling me close in front of everyone. Gasps echoed down the hall, but I didn't care. His grip was steady, warm, unyielding. This was no longer a secret. This was a declaration. The weeks that followed were chaos, but also freedom. Nathaniel resigned from the mission line, choosing instead to train new recruits, passing on his knowledge without sacrificing his soul. It was scandalous, almost unheard of, but he didn't care anymore. We found a rhythm in the midst of the storm. Late nights cooking in the tiny apartment off base, stolen kisses behind hangar doors, quiet mornings watching the sun rise over the airfield. For the first time, he was allowed to be a man instead of a machine. And for the first time, I was allowed to be his equal. Sometimes, though, I'd wake in the middle of the night, heart pounding with memories of the past life. I'd reach for him, terrified it was all a dream. But he'd always be there, warm and steady, pulling me back down with a sleepy murmur of my name. Every touch, every glance, every laugh was proof. I had changed fate. Our final test came months later when another crisis loomed. A training jet malfunctioned mid-air, a rookie pilot trapped inside. Without hesitation, Nathaniel rushed to the control tower, guiding the young man down with calm precision. I watched from the sidelines, heart in my throat. In my past life, he would have been the one in that cockpit, risking everything. Now he stood safe, grounded, saving lives without sacrificing his own. When the jet landed and the rookie stumbled out, Nathaniel exhaled a shaky breath and turned to me. Our eyes met across the chaos, and I knew we had won. This was our new ending. That night, we stood on the airfield, the sky wide and endless above us. The wind carried the scent of jet fuel and promise. Nathaniel slipped his arm around my waist, pulling me against him. "You saved me," he murmured. I shook my head, tears burning my eyes. "No, we saved each other." He kissed me then, slow and deep, the kind of kiss that carried lifetimes. And as his lips pressed to mine, the weight of regret lifted, replaced by something brighter hope. This time there would be no goodbyes. This time we would walk forward together, hand in hand, through every storm. And I swore, silently and fiercely, as his alpha heart beat against mine, "I will never let you go. Not in this life. Not in any life." Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.